Hey guys, this is Matt Marzillo. Today we're going to be going over some of the basics and fundamentals of Microsoft Excel. Really important stuff to lay the foundation of the tool Excel, which in my opinion is probably the most used software out there in the professional world. I, I find it hard to believe there's anybody out there who isn't using this often in their professional life, no matter what their role is. So a very important tool to get to know. So when you're looking at Microsoft Excel, and I'm using Microsoft Excel 2013, the file is actually called a workbook. So we're in a workbook. This whole big thing is called a workbook, and the workbook consists of different sheets or tabs. You can see we have three different sheets or tabs here. Sheet 1 is filled in with some data that I pulled down from IMDb. Sheets 2 and 3 are blank. And within the sheets, there are cells, right? So every cell has different columns and rows. Every cell has an address, right? So right now I'm sitting in cell C15. You can see right here on the top left, it gives you the name of the cell that I'm located in. If I bounce around, that'll change, right? So simple as that. That's sort of the hierarchy of the way Microsoft Excel is set up. You have a workbook with sheets. Sheets have cells in them. Going back to the sheets, you can add sheets by clicking on this plus here. Earlier versions of Excel have what looks like sort of a blank sheet that kind of hovers behind here. If you click on that, it'll add a sheet. You can do that simply just like that, right? So just kind of bump the sheet here next to sheet 1. You can right click on that and delete the sheet. One important thing to remember though is that if you delete a sheet, there's no going back, right? So if you have some information sitting in the sheet and you delete it, it's done. You can't even click undo. So be careful when you're deleting the sheets, and make sure you're saving often. You can also move or copy a sheet. Say you wanted to move or copy it to a different workbook. You can do that right here by clicking on New Book, so essentially creating a new workbook out of that sheet, or moving it to a workbook that's already open. And you can also create a copy by clicking on that radio button there. So that's an important thing to know if you're trying to kind of duplicate some work, or maybe you have a lot of data. Maybe you have thousands of rows, and you want to just bump out I'm sorry. So say you have thousands of rows and multiple sheets. Say you want to just bump out one of the sheets and work on it separately because it's a little bit cleaner, a little bit easier to work with. You can do that. So let's delete the sheet that I just added there, and go back to sheet 1 where our data is. And so you can see within this sheet we have several different columns of data, right? So you can see we have different movie titles. You have the year that's kind of looking funky, and we'll correct that here in a bit. The genre of the movie, and a value number, right? So IMDb has some sort of method for assigning a value to the movies. Higher is better, 0 through 10, so to speak. So you can change the formatting of each of these cells by highlighting the cell, or clicking and dragging with the left click of the mouse, and reformatting it by going up here to this option here, this menu in the Home tab. You can see multiple different types of formatting. You can go with the general, sort of no specific format. You can go with a number, currency, accounting, which look very similar, date, so on and so forth. So if this was really money, we would click on currency, and there you go. It dumps a dollar sign on here, and anytime you put anything in one of the cells that's formatted as currency, it would show up with a dollar sign like that. But it's not a dollar. We want to leave it as general because it's just a kind of a plain old number that's used to rank movies. So that's formatting. You can also bold or italicize different things. So say you wanted to bold the header rows here, right? These are, want to make sure these stand out. You can go ahead and highlight those and click bold. There you go. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to leave that like that. I like that. Also important to note, when you're working in Excel, let's go to D15 here, and you start typing in the cell, you can see that the text pops up obviously in the cell, but it also pops up in the formula bar up here. So sometimes that's useful to know if you have a cell that's a little bit narrow, and you're losing space and you can't see what you're writing. You can always look up to this formula bar and see it in there, right? that's a nice little thing to know about. Uh, let's see here. Another tip. Okay. One quick tip that I want to touch on here before I sign off is that there's a nice functionality that's called the find function. And you might be familiar with this in Word. If you hit Control and F at the same time, you can find a certain number or a certain text or whatever in the actual spreadsheet that's active, right? So say you have, so right here, this is a really small file. We have 12 different entries into this sheet. Nothing complicated. But let's say you had 100,000 movies here, and you wanted to find Django Unchained. You can type in Django, click Find Next or Find All. Find All will show you all of them. There's actually only one time it appears, and it just bounces right to that title. So there you go. Really useful if you have a lot of data and you're trying to comb through it and find a particular movie or something like that. So that's always good to know. So Find All will list out all of the instances of that text. Find Next will just kind of tab through all of the instances of the text one at a time. So we'll close out of that. And another play on that is that if you hit Control H, now we're hitting Control H, so Control Find, which is finding it. Control H is a find and replace. So for whatever reason, when I pulled this data from the IMDb website, it had this little dash here at the beginning of each of the years, which is just silly. I don't like it. I want to figure out a way to get rid of it. I can obviously go down and delete all of them in each of the cells just by clicking on the cell and hitting delete or backspace. But there's an easier way to do that. I'm going to do a find and replace. And what you do is you type in the text you want to find and replace. So that's the dash. You have to be very specific. And I'm going to replace it with nothing, right? I just want to replace it with a blank space. I don't want it there. And then I go and I click on replace all. So keep your eyes on column B there. And boom, there you go. They're all gone. 15 replacements just like that. But wait a second. There's 15 replacements. There's only 12 of these. Oh, so it there were different instances of that dash somewhere else in the file. I don't know if I want to do that. So let's do this. Let's just highlight specifically on those 12 cells. Hit Control H. Leave it like that. Dash. Replace it with just a blank space. And click Replace All. Beautiful. It's just replacing the 12 that I wanted to replace. Excellent. So you don't necessarily have to replace with a blank space. You can replace it with whatever you want to. Maybe there's you realize that you thought Christopher Nolan was the director for all of his movies, but it wasn't. It was really somebody else. And you want every time Christopher Nolan's name appears, you want to replace it with somebody else's name. You can do that by just using the find and replace functionality or the Control H. Really useful, simple tool. Really kind of easy way to impress some folks when you're out there in the professional world doing some work. Last thing I want to touch on before I close out the video is the autofill function. Another thing that's going to make your life a lot easier, specifically when you're using numbers and dates, right? So if you see right here, I'm in cell A15. If I'm trying to go down and say I want to list out 1 through 10, I can easily hit 1, go down, hit 2, go down in 3, and on down the road. But it's going to take me a little bit of time, and I'm kind of lazy. I want to just do this quickly. Excel is smart enough that it recognizes a pattern. It sees that I'm just going kind of down the road, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And when I click on this, when I highlight those cells, and I click on this autofill button here, and I click, hold, and drag, it starts to fill it in just like I want it. So there you go. Really simple as that. Real easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Beautiful. All right, let's clear that out. Hit delete. But now let's say I want to do months. So I can type in, start with January. So rather than having to type out all the months, I want to do all the months of the year. I can click this button and drag it down. And there you go. Excel is smart enough to recognize that I just want to list out the months in order. Really nice functionality. Excel is smart enough to do a lot of things like that. Really cool tool. And that's sort of the fundamentals of Microsoft Excel. So thanks for your time, guys, and I'll see you next time.